Hi everyone, welcome to Live and La Vita Local Podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I am Rich.
And I'm neither of them.
Well done. Well taken.
Hi, neither of them. Welcome, neither of them, Haikers, to the podcast again. You were on, I think it was episode 14 last year, and you're back.
Yes, I am. I've finally been let out of the cupboard. You finally went in that room. And
Finding the keys was difficult.
Too polite to knock. It was strange to have the first floor have the front door, but here we are.
That's really true. I imagine you just stayed in a cupboard for a year. If someone said, "Would you just step in here, please, sir?" and you were like, "Yeah, no, that's cool."
I stayed in a cupboard for 7 years in my first job. That was basically all I did.
So if anybody hasn't listened to that episode, Haikers is one of our best mates from playing flag football, and he historically is a kind of PC/PlayStation gamer. You said.
Yeah, primarily PC and then early PlayStation.
Cool. And you are gaming on mostly at the moment Steam Deck?
Yeah, a combination of the Steam Deck and the PC.
Cool. Good. And I think we'll probably get into a little bit of maybe Steam Deck chat, just because Rich and you now have one since
I do.
then, which is cool.
And it's more exciting than I'm sounding right now. It is very exciting. I promise.
So that is good. So we get to have an exciting chat about that. And you gave Secret of Monkey Island 10 out of 10 at the time. And
did.
He's still back in that horse.
Do you know what? I was listening to the travesty that was that not being awarded your game of the year. But genuinely, I agree with everything that you said about it. I still rate it a 10 out of 10, but I think what Rich said really resonated, which was I can't separate it from nostalgia. Unlike you and Castlevania, where that was coming at it cold. So I completely agree and support your decision.
Oh.
I will, when the mood takes me, disagree with it vehemently if I think it'll be funny. So
that is absolutely fine. I thought you were going to say, when the mood takes you, take revenge. Which I was ready for
I
much
genuinely
worse
thought that
than
was coming too.
I jumped the gun.
Don't mention the gun. And we're drinking beer again tonight. It's been a little while since we had some beers, so Haker suggested we should pick up some sours, which I was all over within seconds. So, do you want to tell us what we've got, Hakers, in terms of the brewery that he suggested in the first place?
Yeah, I really oversold my knowledge of this place when we were talking.
You're looking at it like a sommelier. I'm just reading the ingredients now.
It's just very difficult to read the name. So the brewery is Vault City. It is an Edinburgh-based brewery, I believe. I'm now considering it's definitely Scottish. I'm pretty sure it's.
It says made in Scotland, so we'll we'll just stick with that. That's fine. Yeah.
How many of your listeners are from Glasgow?
6.
Okay.
You don't know that.
No, that's not true.
This joke is going to seem incredibly ill-advised. Edinburgh basically is Scotland, so that's fine. Sorry, 6 people. So this is
the guy in Canada going, "Fuck you, man!" And I said, just for some reason, really, really angry about it.
It's entirely fair. So it's called Tropical Twist. It is a 4.5% session sour. And I'm struggling to think. To use the words, how would you describe a sour beer to somebody who's never had a sour beer before?
That's a great question, actually. I don't know, because it's ridiculous that you would say this about a sour beer, but they're quite so you get just a tang at the start, but then it ends up being a bit sweet towards the back end, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
It doesn't really taste like beer.
No, what I quite like about this is that it's not, the sharpness isn't overpowering. Sometimes I find with sours, it feels like I've been punched in the face. And normally I quite like that with my beverages.
Were you drunk and someone and you were really rude to someone from Glasgow?
Not that time. But yeah, no, this is nice. Nice.
Cool. So with our nice beers, we will be doing nice gaming reviews as always. This week's a Freeplay Fortnightly, where we all take a game and it's a secret from each other, and we give a review, and then our co-host and guest this week, we all give it a score out of 10 based on that review. So, I was going to say at the start of this podcast, and I've forgotten because I'm a bad podcaster, that it is International Podcast Day today. Would you really give a shit about? No. but Spotify did email me to tell me it was International Podcast Day, and they also did say on that email, they were like, "Oh, what you should be doing is having visual podcasts." So, but I can't ever imagine a world where I ever want anyone to see my face, like, really, like, more than they have to. So
I did wonder why you had that screen up.
Yeah.
Put the veil away.
So yeah, it's International Podcast Day, so this might be the best podcast you ever listen to. So, hopefully.
That should be your tagline. This might be the best podcast
Might,
you ever listened
emphasis
to.
on
Hopefully.
might. Might rhymes with shite. Okay, so, Haikers, do you want to kick us off being the guest of honour and tell us all about your free play this week?
Sure. So I have spent some time playing the 2009 action-adventure Jack Black vehicle Brutal Legend.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Let's go.
When you said you thought we wouldn't have played it.
I thought you wouldn't... I checked you hadn't reviewed it.
Yeah.
And then, full disclosure, I changed my mind about what I was playing because I realised that the game that I wanted to play, I didn't have time to play it for reasons we'll get into on a different podcast, I suspect. So yeah, I sort of missed this when it came around, or rather, I was aware of it. It's PS3 game, and I think possibly on the Xbox as well.
My copy was.
Your copy was on the Xbox. Which came out in 2009. In 2013, these beers are strong, 4.5%.
Travelling through time already.
Ale.
Me fail English. Right, so in 2013, it was ported to Steam and to the PC, and that was the version that I was playing. I picked it up probably in a humble bundle 100 years ago, and have I think I had 2.5 hours on it. Recorded before playing it again. So for I don't know, Fazz, if you're aware of it.
No idea.
That's fine. You're aware of the concept. You're aware of the concept of Jack Black.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
I mean, he's more of a Bowser nowadays to me. Like, isn't that sort of like more?
Yeah, this was him in his more kind of Mario era, like kind of main protagonist. Energy. Yeah. So the game is set in what I can only describe as a world of heavy metal covers, or like heavy metal album covers. So it's a fantasy action RPG. Cool. The plot is meh. You play as a roadie who gets squished by the stage whilst being a roadie for the worst, the most successful, least good metal band in history. I'm butchering that. But you get sent backwards in time, as we all do when we get squished by big heavy metal stages that we've built. And you find yourself in this sort of quasi fantasy heavy metal album cover inspired world. It's an action adventure game. You drive around in a hot rod. You slash things with the axe. You play guitar solos to melt people's faces, sometimes literally.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's and it's open world. So yeah, starting out, I would play any game in the world that was set in this universe. I think that's the first thing I have to say. Give me Pokemon in this universe. Give me The Sims in this universe. I like a Stardew Valley version of this would be amazing. I'm a fan of metal. I wouldn't say I think Rich. I will bow down to your superior knowledge on all things metal. But I've got a good level of.
It looks around at the guitars. Heavy metal.
But I like it. I like the aesthetic. I like the sort of the nonsense that goes along with it. The over the topness of it, which is personified by Jack Black and Tenacious D. Yeah. Metal is silly, and I don't care what anybody says. It's great, but it's also very, very silly, and this turns the silliness up to 11.
So when you say it's a Jack Black vehicle, like how is he the main protagonist?
He's the main. So the game literally starts with a live action cutscene.
Cool.
Of Jack Black going into a record store in LA, finding the forbidden metal section and finding an album cover, and that's like that transitions into the menu for the game.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty, by the way.
I was going to say,
it is beautifully done.
How have I never even heard of this before?
Because it's just too fucking metal.
So it was a bit of a commercial.
That's fair.
But it was, and this was probably when Jack Black was at the height of his powers, or certainly among...
Pretty damn close, if not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was 2013. He was just getting into his film work. Tenacious D had just had...
Kung Fu Panda.
Sorry, 2009. Yeah. all that kind of stuff. He was a vehicle that was expanding outwards, and
basically, the longer his beard gets, the more he becomes more like Claptrap. And that's how it goes. It's like a kind of inverse beard effect.
You do have to really respect Jack Black that he's kind of like done School of Rock, like Goosebumps, like Jumanji. He's just like basically taking over, like you say, Kung Fu Panda, just taking over that sort of like early teens sort of scene where it's just like, you know, and like it does a great job of it, really. Like,
And look, he's like a more fun James Corden. He's like sort of everywhere.
God, he is.
I don't resent him for it.
You like him for it, whereas James Corden can die.
Wow. I mean, I'm not a fan, but wow.
I wish him no personal ill harm.
No, I said he can
don't
die.
tell
You know, like everyone can. Anyway, carry on now.
That's
before
the most metal thing you've said for a while.
Metal! James Corden! Well, you know, I'm not taking it back. I'm not sorry about it. It's just a statement.
Happy International Podcast Day, everyone.
Supported by, it's all okay.
Supported by insulting Glaswegians.
Yeah, wow.
And wishing James Corbett.
Ronnie Corbett. No, I like him. He's fine. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
This is going great.
I really derailed that there.
So the reason I called it a Jack Black vehicle is because the main protagonist is modelled on Jack Black. It is Jack Black's voice. To be clear, he's excellent in it. His voice acting is on point. All of the voice acting is on point. And his fingerprints are all over it in terms of some of the influences. I don't think he actually had a hand in the creation, but it's that the Jack Black school of rock and metal is sort of very firmly the zone where this is put in. You literally have Ozzy Osbourne in this game as the guardian of metal who will sell you upgrades to your hot rod, like voiced and in the style of. So it's all like, I would live in that world. I think it's great. You're as I say, it's an action RPG with real-time strategy elements. So most of the time you're running around thwacking things with an axe, but then a decent chunk of the time you're driving around in your hot rod or flying above a battlefield, directing various metal subcultures at each other in a sort of weird real-time strategy way. You have a stage, they have a stage, you're kind of fighting for control of different points with various different, like, you know, you have roadies, for example, which are stealthy because nobody can see a roadie when they're working. Or you just have headbangers who literally go and headbutt their enemies into submission, that kind of thing.
This feels like a Mad Max like real-time strategy.
There's a dash of that, I think. Yeah.
I think that's fair. So I think, as I say, the world is great. The plot is meh. It's the character. It's weird. The characters are quite good, but the plot is really meh. It's like signposted, and it does feel like the kind of thing you'd write when you were 12 years old, which is interesting because reading about it, it's held up as a bastion of good storytelling.
Is it? Really?
Which I think is more about the world than about the plot.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely distinctions to be made. I've discovered recently where I've been a bit more like, right, okay, you can have, and so you know, playing a game at the moment that'll come up for one of our Halloween sort of esque episodes where great characters, plot, bleh, and you just kind of like, and people remember it as, oh, it's a really great story. You're like, I think you just like the guys.
Yeah, yeah. I would hang out with these characters.
Yeah.
I think, but I wouldn't want to hear them give a speech. I think that's maybe that's where I draw the line. So moving on, and this is where I'm slightly concerned that I'm sitting too close to Rich. I'm concerned that I'm about to tread on unholy ground here.
We'll see.
Because, so like all open world games, you've got like a main plot, which, as discussed, is sort of it's meh. And then there's a whole ton of stuff to sort of see and do outside of the main quest. The problem is, I had no desire to see any of the stuff that was outside the main storyline and quest.
Okay.
There was this great, big, beautiful world that I wanted to go and explore, but I just, after trying for 5 minutes, I was like, no, I've had it. I cannot go and explore because the hot rod drives like it is on ice skates on the moon. It's you can't. The graphics are such that you can't really see, and maybe it's that PS3 era, or maybe it's just a bad port or something like that. Yeah, I cannot tell if something is something that I'm gonna like, if it's debris that I'm gonna scatter, or if it is a tiny speed bump which is going to flip my like moon rover hot rod around in circles. You couldn't drive anywhere. It was awful. Like, the driving was genuinely awful.
I'm looking at Richard for his
Yeah, no,
64 review.
He's quite right. He is quite right. Like the hot rod, considering it is this big, beefy, very metallic, very metal kind of machine. It is weirdly floaty. And now you mention it, I don't remember much in the way of the side quest stuff at all. The red line that you were possibly hurtling toward was bad-mouthing Lemmy.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. And I knew you wouldn't be stupid enough to do that.
So Lemmy does ham it up / cannot do the voice acting.
It's great.
But it's so obviously Lemmy. It's not like they're disguising that it's Lemmy. It's just Lemmy sat there. And you can imagine him just in the recording studio, lounged in exactly the same pose that he was lounged in before, reading the lines, and everyone just being like, "Yep, great job, Lemmy.
That's fine.
Let's move on. Got it in the can.
One take."
But that adds to the charm, and you've got quote unquote proper actors.
I was going to say like some star quality. Stuff. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's and it's good, and it's camp, it's daft. So like Lemmy is he's the bassist, and it's literally just a big long running joke about how the bassists get all the girls. Yeah. Because the magic that they play is healing, and it tingles nicely. It's absolutely crackers. The navigation is awful as well. Instead of, you don't have a mini map. Basically you've got turn signals on your car that indicate whether you should turn left or right. But as discussed, you can't really tell the road from like one bit of the road from the other. You can't tell what you can drive on, what you can't drive on. Hit the wrong thing, you float up. Hit anything, and you just stop dead. And it like accelerates fast, but my goodness me. So I just spent a large part of the game thinking, am I missing something? I'm probably missing loads of stuff, and this is all great, but I just have no desire to go and explore it.
Okay. And how big do you think the world gets? And looking at both of you here, then really, if you both played it.
Well, I mean, I've got a good idea of how big the world is because I completed the game in one weekend, like just by playing the storylines. And I think the quickest or the quickest you could do it if you did literally nothing else is about 4 hours.
Oh really? Shit. Okay.
Without,
for selling an open world, it's
pretty.
That's a closed world too.
Yeah, I don't remember it being like. Nowadays you say a game is open world and you are instantly expecting a kind of Ubisoft like huge hours, like rambling experience. It's nothing like that.
Kind of speaks to me though. I'm kind of
I think there is something to be said for its focus. And I think when they first released it, the biggest sort of issue they ran into was the fact that it is basically like a real time strategy game that kind of was released by stealth almost.
Stealth game.
But I think, like, for my part, with a bit of hindsight, like that's unexpected and interesting. But yeah, like Haikers is absolutely right. The world building is worth playing just for the world building alone. Yeah. And I think like Rob Halford from Judas Priest was the bad guy or something like that.
No, he's hinted at spoilers.
Oh yeah, sorry. Wow, I blundered into that.
Hinted at maybe being the baddie in the jungle, but then he turns out he's just a badass on a motorbike. And incidentally, the mission that you go on to learn how to use his ability is one of the most infuriating missions in any video game I've ever had. And that actually brings me nicely onto another point, which is the difficulty spikes in this game are ludicrous. And I don't think they're not intentional. It's not like a ramping up of the difficulty. It depends entirely. Like, you've got so many follow quests where you're just following the tour bus, blowing up stuff that comes behind it, easy as they come. And then you've got ones like the follow or ride pillion with Judas Priest while you're trying to. I think you're trying to encircle a flaming beast in like a literal ring of fire, so that a badass metal chick can jump on it, so that you can then ride it into battle. That's.
I mean, you can't say that sentence and not give it like 17 out of 10. Like, as it
should. I mean, I am happily headbanging, which most people would say was nodding. But here I am.
So it's an indicator of just how flippin' annoying the mission was that I nearly gave up at that point, because the in order to kind of circle this beast. You just got to hold a button and drag, but the camera controls are awful. You can't really see where you're going. You crash into things all the time because, again, this bike can't turn. Because famously, motorbikes really not very good at handling. And then the creature will like follow you, will run after you, but it will literally follow in the wake of the fire. So it's really hard to describe, but basically you end up creating a circle of fire with this thing either on or on the outside of it 10 times, and they've recorded 2 lines of dialogue. One saying, "Why are you burning that thing? You shouldn't burn it," and the other one saying, "There's nothing in that circle." I heard that line, and you've got to do this thing 3 times. 3 times. I lost the will to live. And there's other kind of quality of life stuff which has come in more recent games. Maybe I'm just getting old, I'm too old for this nonsense.
That was nearly the tagline for this entire podcast.
I mean, yeah, because even quality of life stuff, like you don't know if you're about to die. The screen, like now the screen would go red, or you get some audio clues, or everything would sort of do that thing that I hate in war films when the sound fades out. But like there's no indication. Yeah. Now all you get is like 0 warning, and then you're done, and it's just like you failed, back to the checkpoint. And then so the missions were all either insultingly easy, repetitive, or just difficult, but not because of intended difficulty or satisfying difficulty.
It sounds like I feel really conflicted, because it feels like one of these things where you want to love the world that it is, and it's kind of like it feels like the culture that you like to be part of, and yet it sounds like one of the worst games you've played. Possibly
worst is a strong word, but I am
well put together then.
I'm not going to use emotive words because that might impact your arbitrary score out of 10. Feel free to rate it, and then I will tell you.
Put it through a
give
machine,
you my general feeling.
It comes out on ticker tape. It's great.
Just roll a dice.
This game is fucked. That's basically that, you know.
Just seems to be that on repeat.
Have you got any more to add for it then, in terms of before we rack up a score for that bad boy? I
quite like the RTS elements, but it felt like if you were doing it today, I feel like you would make much more of the RTS elements and make it a little bit easier to do, because one of the big criticisms of that mode, which I agree with, is it's really difficult to micromanage your troops with console controls, because you've got a whole bunch of different squads that are all good against different types of the enemy, but you've got pretty blunt tools for controlling them. You need to be close to them, and then you press 1 of 4 buttons to either say move to the waypoint, follow me, stick where you are, or go over there. And anyone who's within earshot will go there, unless you go up to the specific unit, hold a button down to say just you guys, which in the heat of battle, and there can be, there's a decent number of units kicking about. There's like 20 to 30 on each side at any given time. That's really painful. And I think if you're doing it now, I would make more of the guitar solos. Okay. Which are sort of like super moves. It's like almost like a rhythm element. It's like very, very, very basic rhythm element where you hold the button down, press the sequence to cast the spell, essentially. I think if you were doing it now, you'd probably want to have some kind of a freestyle solo where you're up there, you press the buttons to sort of give commands to specific unit types, which you could do really well with just each button having a kind of solo, like a scale progression associated with it. You could make it sound really metal, but also give you a little bit of that, like, no, I just want the ranged units to stay there and the melee units to go and punch him in the face, that kind of thing. So there's a load of stuff that I think if you were doing it now, you could do again. And I think what I'll finish with is and I will say the emotive thing. My overwhelming feeling with it was disappointment, because I was like, they had one shot to make this game. They had one shot to make a game in this universe, and I really wanted to enjoy it. Really wanted to enjoy it more than I did.
So I'm just thinking, like, it's because I can't help but feel like what you're describing is a really crap game, but a brilliant idea. And something that, even though you've just told me all about it, I'm still a bit like, I kind of want to check this out, just because there can't be anything out there anywhere that is like this, really. That is, obviously it's different games put together, but
I was thinking about this, and the nearest I can think, and it's a completely different genre completely, is it Hellsinger? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Something like that. The rhythm shooter.
A rhythm-based first-person shooter, which has, like, kind of contemporary metal artists who've recorded multi-layered tracks, and you sort of, like, I almost played that one, to be fair, afterwards. and you have to like shoot in rhythm, sort of like Guitar Hero, but you're shooting things.
Yeah.
And the more you shoot, the more layers of music get kind of put onto it.
Yeah.
And it's in this kind of metal universe. So I think thematically that ties it quite nicely, and probably the fact that I'm tying it to something that is thematically adjacent rather than gameplay adjacent probably tells you a lot about it.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Rich, what are you thinking?
What am I thinking? So
I like having two people to like try and tackle a score because
Yeah,
it makes it even harder.
Gonna have to work out an average or something. So the reason I'm sitting here smiling wryly to myself is I kind of showed my hand a little bit when I thought that Rob Halford was the bad guy, because I actually played this last year and I very nearly bloody reviewed it. However,
Guys,
I played it for about 2 hours, 3 hours, and then was like, you know what? I'm good.
I'm done.
Thank you very much. I have had a lovely time. It's been lovely to see the world again. And I got as far as Lemmy and a couple of missions past that. And then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm happy. Like I've tickled that nostalgic
I've
itch.
Seen it.
And so yeah, like it. I think we've hit the nail on the head with the whole the world being this awesome, intoxicating place. Like you could basically take a screenshot with the camera pointed in any given direction and it would look like an album cover. That is really fucking impressive art direction.
Yeah.
And then you add in the nods to various bits and bobs, the characters, the soundtrack, all that good stuff. And yeah, it is this intoxicating idea that it's just not there. The substance isn't there to pull you through for, well, even 4 or 5 hours, let alone dozens. So I think for me, like with a heavy heart, it would be tickling the kind of 5 or 6 range for me. But that is very much coloured by the fact that I dipped my toe in and was like, you know what? Like it's just not there for me anymore. Like I almost prefer the memory of playing it first time round than going back and playing it now.
Okay. I mean, it's probably easier for me then to not have any feelings towards it whatsoever, apart from what you guys have imbibed at me. And it's like imbued, imbibed, whatever, imbibable.
Spoken at you.
Thank you.
Age and feel.
Yeah. And I like I say, just hearing it, not great gameplay, but I can't help but feel like, you know, I really want to check out the thematics, if you will, of this game. And I probably would rather just, I guess, watch someone play it from YouTube maybe, and just sort of like crack open a couple of beers.
Genuinely might be a good way of doing it.
Hold my Guitar Hero controller in my hand. So yeah, I think that's I think you made it easy by going at 5/6. If I then go 4, I think it's a 5. Like overall,
we balance out in the middle.
I
somewhere.
think so. Yeah,
right,
because I kind of
putting
feel
it on
like
the spreadsheet.
I'm probably, because I haven't got the nostalgia for it, and so therefore don't have any emotional goodness from the bits you could see. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a great game, but you know, worth having a sort of at least understanding that it exists would probably be good for me.
I know my actual view on the score doesn't mean jack because we're in free play, but for what it's worth, I was pitching it at a 5, and 4 of that is for the world building.
Yeah, that's cool. It's important that you tell us that so you can feel vindicated.
And again, the soundtrack is undermined by the gameplay so many times. It's like there's one bit in particular, which is probably before you got there. There is a chase sequence in your hot rod, which is soundtracked by Through the Fire and Flames by Dragon Force, nice. Which is excellent. But it's like you're doing it in a dodgem. You just keep bouncing off everything, and it's like, this is not as epic as this is not what Jack Black intended.
There would be something super epic about being at a fairground and doing dodgems to that. Why are there so many dead children?
Did you know there's no limit to how big or fast you can make the dodgems?
There's something about that I really appreciate. Not the dead children, the dodgem analogy.
Happy International Podcast Day, everybody!
Oh, come on, what's worse? Dead children? James Corden? I don't know. I don't know how to talk about that Corden.
Maybe just be quiet for a bit.
Yeah, never. No.
This
do you want to go next?
Podcast brought to you by the letter death. And the number, huh?
I can go next. Yeah. Yeah. I've got notes. Hang on.
Cool, good.
I've got many notes.
The only note I took out of Haikers, which I'll definitely put into the podcast sort of description, is metal.
Nice.
So,
That's
go.
good.
I like that. I had to share that out loud.
Gentlemen and listeners, Duke Nukem Forever.
Whoa.
Oh wow, that's a reaction, isn't it?
You guys are really
spoiling me tonight, aren't we? Yeah. 2011, I believe it came out after 14 years in development.
Wow,
14 years.
That's crazy, isn't it?
And I don't think I've ever played anything that has so obviously felt like it's been designed by committee.
Over 14 years.
Over 14 years. So, if you're at work and someone has a great idea, but it feels very, very late, and like the chance to have used it has already been and gone. Imagine if you had a game that had been gestating for 14 years, and you can go through and almost spot the sort of franchises it's picked up on the way. You can spot where these ideas came in. So, when I say Duke Nukem, what do you think of? Fazz, what do you think of when I say Duke Nukem?
I guess, pigs.
Pigs? Okay, all right.
Boobs and guns.
Yep, all right.
And time to kill.
Yep.
That's my Duke Nukem sort of,
That's your knowledge.
Yeah, that's it.
Your info dump of Duke Nukem. All right, nice one. Haikers?
That's all right.
Big guns, loud noises,
Yep,
a button for kicking things. And,
yes.
sort of like weird dystopian cities, if I remember correctly.
Cool. Yeah. No, we'll take all of that lot. So, does anybody think of hiding behind cover to wait for your health to regenerate?
In the context of Duke Nukem, or just in everyday life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hiding always works. It's always a valid option.
Because he was in that cover for so long.
Is Duke Nukem not? Is that not id, or was that not id Software?
3D Realms, I believe.
Right.
Should know. But by the time this came out, it was Gearbox, I believe.
Okay.
And it kind of feels a bit like there's a hint of Borderlands influence creeping in there a little bit.
Crazy this came out after Borderlands. Compute that.
I had to double check.
Duke Nukem was just around in 2011.
It felt wrong.
Yeah.
It's on the way. It's picked up regenerating health that Call of Duty. It's picked up having these long vehicle sections, Halo, 2 weapons, Halo again, environmental puzzles, Duke Nukem with environmental puzzles. Who knew? Half-Life 2.
I was going to say Half-Life 2.
Yeah. So there's all this stuff where you say Duke Nukem, and yeah, I'm with you. I think big guns, loud explosions, balls to the wall action, and all that kind of stuff. And you have these big long sequences where you are just kind of doing nothing. And they're sort of punctuated by these little combat encounters that aren't necessarily like arenas or anything like that. It feels quite linear all the way through. Sometimes you might be in a vehicle. Other times you might be doing some light platforming, especially if you've been shrunk down and have to get to a high button. And the pacing on some of these levels as well, they're so stretched out unnecessarily. I think the game could have been about half as long and would have been just fine.
Yeah.
Weirdly though, you can execute certain enemies and get your health back, which is kind of like 2016 Doom. And you have these quick time event things to do a kind of brutal kill on some of the bosses. And I was like, did this game invent Doom's glory kills before Doom did them? So I'm on the fence about that.
But wasn't that God of War before it was?
I mean, it could well have
possibly
been. Yeah. But it was one of those things that just looking at the mechanic happen, I was like, is that the one progressive thing in this game?
I think where else they happened.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You can get executions in Halo, then earlier the same.
Yeah, but so you get your health back from them and stuff like that.
I feel like there is a concept.
It would at least
point,
I can see how it would buy you time for your shield to recharge and stuff like that. Which, my point is with this is that sitting there thinking, is this something that this game has actually? Is this an original idea that this game had? Is the fact that the more I thought about it, the more I was like, given everything else that is happening in this game, I kind of refuse to believe that it had an original idea in it. And I think this entire back and forth has illustrated that perfectly for me, where clearly I'm not alone, where it just feels like it shouldn't shouldn't exist.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's the whole thing feels so dated, which I appreciate. It came out, how many years ago and was in production for however long. But like, even the humor and like, I mean, Duke Nukem's always been kind of racy, right? There's been strippers and all this kind of stuff. But it's always kind of, in my mind, fallen into the kind of like nearly campy titillation, wouldn't be far removed from like a grittier Carry On film kind of territory.
Carry On Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
I know. Oh my god, that's amazing.
Exactly, right? And
oh, pig man.
I am going to come back to this point, right?
Flash me your trotters.
So like, but here, all of that stuff is there, right? The women and the jokes and all that kind of stuff, but it's so fucking crass and it's so debased and it's just like unnecessarily bad. And you have this like, you have this sidekick character that pops up, and some of the lines he throws out, it just comes across like the kind of guy that would think that, like, I don't know, waving his dick out the side of a bus would be the most hilarious thing in the world. And it's just like,
Fazz is laughing.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? Like, I could imagine that someone was sat in that room
Classic.
having Fazz's reaction right now, and everybody else just going, you know what? If it will shut you up, Kevin, we'll put it in the game. Just it's been 14 years. Can we crack on?
It's only funny because it annoys people so much. Hey, James!
I'm sorry, I'm so confused. Do you mean Duke Nukem annoys people that much, or like literally waving your dick around?
No.
And if it's the latter, how did you know?
No, I think that there's something to be said for when it's like a concept that you're like, oh, this is really, really, it is really annoying. Like, it's insert, and it's just like, and it makes me giggle because I'm like, oh, this is so childish that I don't find the idea of it actually happening childish. That really annoys me. But like the fact that people are annoyed by it is hilarious. That's where I land on that.
Got you. So where do you stand on picking up poo?
I mean, I do it quite regularly.
Routinely.
Yeah, with a child, and it's not funny.
No. Well, you can do it in this game. You can pick up poo for some reason. I don't really know why. And again, it's that sort of thing that, like, Duke Nukem, interactive environments, all that kind of stuff back in the day, it was, well known for it. And so the developers seemingly thought, okay, we'll have this section you can interact with stuff. And if you do certain interactions, like play a pinball machine and stuff like that, you can raise your health a little bit, which is kind of cool. But then it's not baked into the world. So then you have like this big long sequence where you're just doing other things and moving to somewhere else and occasionally shooting things. And you're not really interacting with anything. Like, it doesn't feel like the world is interactive. It feels like that room is interactive.
Okay.
And then, and it's a swing and a miss, right? They're hitting the tropes. They've gone through a checklist of what makes Duke Nukem, and it's there, but it's not right. It's there on paper. It's not there in spirit.
Yeah.
Almost. And it just felt flat for me. However, it does have some big guns and it does sound great and it still kind of looks all right in places and stuff like that. When it is firing on all cylinders, there is something there. There is a spark, right? There is something to it. So, like, I kind of wish they bring him back, but I want like either a Carry On Duke Nukem or like Old Man Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
Like, I would fucking love an Old Man Duke Nukem where, like, I know they went and did like Ion Fury and all that kind of stuff and had this character they kind of spun off from like some of the production documents basically for Duke Nukem Forever. It would be great if you like pair him up with a perfectly competent female partner who actually like calls him on his bullshit and stuff like that. Or, just do a Mad Max Fury Road thing where it's a Duke Nukem game, but you barely ever play as Duke Nukem. You just have to be in someone else's shoes, putting up with his shit all the time. Like,
cleaning up his mess.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Power Wash Simulator, Duke Nukem.
Yeah, there you go. Like, the point is that even just by dint of being a Duke Nukem game, there's something there. There is a spark. I played the whole thing. Okay. Like, don't get me wrong, I was bored off my tits, like, for a not insignificant part of it.
How long was it?
I think I clocked in at about 9.5 hours when I did the DLC as well.
It's a sweet spot.
The DLC is much better paced, by the way. Like, there's a less downtime and stuff like that. But you're still having to do things like ride a moon rover into a giant alien creature's birth canal to destroy her ovaries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not entirely sure that's Duke Nukem in spirit.
Yeah, it's
you know,
that is 14 years of Kevin saying, "Do you know what we should do?
Yeah,
what we should do."
Yeah, exactly. And it's that sort of. It just felt like the developers were tired, you know, by the end of it.
The dick
like
out the bus sounds like a good idea right about now compared to that one.
Unfortunately, that was basically my line. But this is my point. Like, I'm sitting here chatting absolute rubbish, and I am still funnier than Duke Nukem. I don't care what anybody says.
You've had some great ideas.
Thank you.
I think I imagine a world where in 10 years' time, I'm watching a movie that was written by Rich that's starring Duke Nukem.
I'll tell you what, I might just tentatively put out some feelers and see if I can buy the Duke Nukem license.
Yeah.
Give me Duke Nukem.
I was like, please take it. Please take Duke.
Without wanting to like rain on your parade, and by all means go ahead and quit your job to do this, but is that not just basically the plot of Demolition Man, but with Duke Nukem IP attached to it?
Yeah, it's not far off.
And what's bad about that? Like,
No, nothing bad.
That's kind of my point,
that'll
though.
sell.
Because, so weirdly with this game as well, is it weird? They have like a kind of development timeline in there, and you can see a lot of the production documents and screenshots and stuff like that, which is the kind of thing that, you know, with 2024 a vision on, you look back and you go, well, Digital Eclipse are doing a load of those, you know, interactive documentaries, and this is kind of a regular thing now. We kind of expect to see it in like compilations and retro games and stuff like that. And there it was in a new release because it had taken so fucking long to come out. And so there's this weird, like, it feels like this kind of oddly triumphant, like, yeah, we got it over the line kind of thing. But then you go through them and you realize how true to those original documents from, like, I don't know, 1996 or whatever.
Oh, right, okay.
The finished product was, but with, like, it feels like it's been stretched out, basically, like artificially stretched out. And yeah, it's the only other thing really that I wanted to mention is that it did have a multiplayer of some kind. I wasn't able to play it because, unsurprisingly, there was nobody on any of the servers.
I really wanted there to be somebody.
I checked
like,
the list. They were all 0 of 8, and I was the only person on the Duke Nukem Forever servers last
Guys,
Hitch Morsefield of Alabama's
week. Yeah.
Oh.
scene.
So yeah,
that's fitting now.
yeah, probably is. But like it's got a couple of odd decisions in it. It's got a couple of like really just eye-rollingly, and not like ironically, oh, aren't we all having a great time, really kind of eye-roll, like genuinely. Like, I'm really not sure you should be putting that in a game at all, let alone, kind of moments. And I mean, there was one bit where, I said about having 2 weapons. There's an option in the menu to have 4 as like an inventory instead. And I kind of got the impression that they just, like, I don't know, maybe patched that in or added it at the last minute. But it was one of those ones where I was just like, why did you feel the need to do that? Couldn't you have just picked one and gone with that? And to me, it just felt like, okay, so you had 14 years to make it happen, and it's still going to come across as slapdash because of decisions like that. And like you're kind of, doing this by the seat of your pants. So
over that length of time, the development, like the changes in technology is ridiculous. So you are doing it slapdash because you're having to basically remake your game and add on whatever the latest shiny is.
That is a fair point, because I think they basically did do that a good few times, and especially that period as well, like the late 90s into the noughties and stuff like that. Like the way things changed.
Crazy just to think, like, we'll make this for a PlayStation 1. And it's just like there, sat there, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 and almost an Xbox One a year earlier. It's like, oh God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. But I do kind of hope that, there is something more of Duke, but it kind of feels like it needs to be more on time this time, So yeah, I think that's me.
Fair enough. Haikers, what do you think?
I mean, do you know what I find particularly damning about that review?
Oh,
is that you've been
most of it.
Yes, apart from most of it. That's 20 minutes of talking about the game.
Yeah.
Not once have you mentioned the combat.
Yeah.
The actual gunplay, which is like this should be front and center.
Yeah.
And even in those other ones that you mentioned, Halo and Borderlands, etc. gunplay is like that's
why you're there.
That's that's the macaroni cheese under the hot sauce of all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So that sounds really damning to me. You've said some good things about it, but mostly it seems to be that at least they tried.
Yeah. I think that was kind of what I took away from it.
So, and I mean, I'm coming at this from
from
a baseline. That feels to me like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. What did you play it on?
It was on my Steam Deck, funnily enough.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
fair.
so quote unquote technically PC.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 3, maybe.
Yeah.
3.
Put it on the spreadsheet.
I think Brutal Legend's getting a 5, this is getting a 3. I think that I genuinely think you kind of like made it sound better than what it is almost. Like, you did such a good job of like giving us a taste of the world, like isn't but from a fair angle, and it still sounds shit.
I'm struggling to remember the name of the game, but one of you might be able to help me out with this. There was very recently in, I think, the old Duke Nukem engine, or possibly the old Doom engine. Very recently, somebody released a game about Britain where you could walk through, and it was all like Wagatha Christie, and it was seagulls stealing your chips. But it was in that kind of blocky thing. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I'm going to have to look this up.
You're going to have to find it
in the break, because it's excellent. But the game you were describing sounded more to me like that pastiche game, wandering around like Britain Food Bank, that kind of thing. Than Duke Nukem.
I think that's a really, really good point, because I had a not insignificant part of the playtime going through it, waiting for a punchline.
Yeah.
I was like, this could potentially be really, really funny if it was satire. But it's not. I think I finished it. I was like, oh shit, they were serious.
Do you reckon that's one of the things that they updated? It's like, oh crumbs, it's the 21st century now. We better be pole-faced and miserable.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it would have been an era of like very brown games and all that kind of stuff and grittiness. But yeah,
could have made it stand out if they kind of even thought about doing that.
Yeah, and I think that was why I was so disappointed by it, because all the time I was sitting there going, what could have been, like what you could have done with this character, what you could have done with this setting, what you could have done with this level, what you could have edited down. Yeah, the gunplay is fine, it's fun, the shotgun sounds nice, but yeah, you're quite right. Like it I was too distracted by other things around it to actually focus on what was going on. And dare I say it, for a Duke Nukem game, you're not actually in combat quite as often as you would have assumed. Which is why I'm kind of disappointed I couldn't try the multiplayer, because there might have been something there. But alas, 'twas not to be.
All right, well, this is going well. We've capped out at an average of 4 out of 10 for the first 2 games.
Nobody likes somebody being like a podcast where everybody is mindlessly positive.
No, well,
yeah, Fazz.
To be honest, we'll come back to that. To be honest, I was asking on the PSP Reddit this weekend, and if you listened to the podcast and you're on there and you've answered, thanks very much. I was asking about mid games, because it does feel it feels easy to find. Certainly now you can go back and find a game that this is generally well liked, even if you've never played it before, or you remember having a really good time in the game, and also a terrible game. Trying to find like games that you sort of seek in the middle and can make your own opinion on, almost a little bit in a way. That's something that I'm kind of looking for, maybe going forward in the podcast a bit more. Certainly with the PSP games, try and find stuff that I'm like, if people have a sort of an average opinion of this, and actually or at least they did say back in 2007 to 2012. So actually, what does it look like now? So
fine wine or vinegar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and and one of them suggested by quite a lot of people was Sonic Rivals, and I reviewed that, and I gave that 3 out of 10. Excuse me, and I'm like, there we go. It's all okay.
That's what happens when you tell Reddit they're wrong.
No, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, it was just interesting to see that people were like, that is definitely a mid game. And I was like, I thought it was worse than a mid game, and I wonder if that's like a time thing, or I could just be completely wrong, but it was just sort of, hearing about these games, they sound like mid games maybe at the time, and actually have dropped down a couple of levels maybe even from then.
I mean, if it's any consolation, I decided to play Duke Nukem because I perceived it as a mid game, and had never tried it. And I know when it first came out, it kind of got like lambasted and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, shit, I didn't wait 14 years for it.
Yeah,
you know, I can imagine if you were a big fan and you were waiting that long for it, I could see why it would be so frigging disappointing. Yeah, like it's not a terrible game. It works, it functions, you can play it, and it's not as bad as a lot of people reckon.
Stick that on the front of the box.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's damning with faint praise, isn't it? Like it happened. It came and went. It will be forgotten, and I don't have to play it again.
So let's take a couple of minutes then to talk about Steam Deck. We did describe, or at least Haikers did, in a bit of detail, about a year and a half ago, about how you just kind of picked it up. You hadn't had it in your library that long. And it was just more of an update on how you feel about it now. And also, Rich, because you've not really had a chance to speak about it too much yet. No. I think I just want to sit back and watch you guys chop up the wood or whatever you do. I don't know. What people do.
You said that like that should be a thing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's
not a
thing.
Okay. Well, you difference of opinions, fine. You chop up your wood. Fine, gentlemen.
Stop trying to make chop up your wood happen, Fazz.
Just talk about the Steam Deck already. Come on, go. Fire away.
Do you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, sure. So I am really impressed by it. Okay. I've had a Steam account and various things on the go for it since Half-Life 2 came out. So I've had a Steam account for a long time now. But it's the kind of thing that routinely, like I previously had dabbled with PC gaming and stuff like that, but hadn't like kept pace with it. And I grew up a console gamer and all that kind of stuff, so it just sort of stuck with me a bit more. So often I would end up with stuff on Steam or, more recently Humble Bundle and stuff like that, where it would be great to play it, but I wasn't really able to play it terribly well because of the setup I had. And especially, the last however many years I've had laptops and stuff like that as well, which hasn't helped. And I had a bit of a clear out of some of my games and stuff like that a little while back, and realised that I had a couple of items in there that was actually going to get me some decent money. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna cash them in. I'm gonna treat myself, and I am really pleased I did, because I appreciate for some of the more recent stuff on Steam, it's going to start to struggle more and more to keep pace, and it's already kind of at that cusp. It feels like. Okay. But for a lot of the stuff that's already in my library and a lot of the stuff that I'm likely to want to play in a handheld form, it more than does the job. But what I like, the thing I like best about it, and this is going to sound so friggin' dumb, I like the form factor. It's really comfortable for me to hold. And I know I've said before now about like playing Vita games and stuff like that on a Vita. Because of the size of it, I struggle nowadays to like play it comfortably for prolonged periods, which obviously if you're trying to review something, you want to be able to put in some hours on it. And so having the Steam Deck where I can sort of spread my hands out a little bit more and like, actually grip something that's kind of designed for adult hands, makes a big difference. And then you add in, the flexibility of what it can do. And yeah, no, I'm dead chuffed with it. Yeah.
I'm sorry we can't call the podcast Living the Steam Deck Loca. It doesn't quite have the same
It's fine, we'll just do a spin-off.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Cool. So, do you find it to be a useful retro gaming handheld? Which sounds like a bit of a weird question for something so powerful, but I think I've read things about people say it's great for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people have like really gone to town with emulation and stuff like that on it, especially because again, like it is a computer, you can install what you like on it.
It's Linux and it's Proton, so it's very malleable.
And there are plenty of people that have gone and put Windows and stuff on it as well instead, and done all sorts of stuff. And I know it's very flexible for that. I've just stuck to vanilla and kept it on Steam and stuff like that, and even then, it more than does the job for me. Weirdly, and I was not expecting this, but it's kind of becoming a bit of a like my de facto like fighting game machine. Weirdly, it can run Street Fighter 6 quite happily. It can run Tekken 8. They won't look bleeding edge, but they'll run. And it'll run a bunch of other fighting games from Steam from all through the ages, and it's got better peripheral compatibility with a lot of my sticks and gubbins and all that kind of stuff than basically any of the consoles I've got. So like any which way you want to approach it, you probably can. So for what I do and how I play things, yeah, it's more than doing a job. It's probably like it's not quite beating the Switch in my head for like shmups and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly has a niche in my little world.
I think we got round to an arbitrary score for the Steam Deck last time, Haikers.
I believe it was an 8.
8, wasn't it? Yeah. So how are you feeling about that score now, a year and a half on of having it in your life?
It's difficult because, do you know what? I've actually not really used it that much, and that's the most damning thing. But mostly that is because I don't leave the house if I can help it. I go to, well, apart from work, I go to work.
That sentence.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. No. So
not voluntarily.
So I'm not. Yeah,
you're gonna drag me out.
I don't take it with me. The one thing that does irritate me about it is in terms of the portability. If you wanted to actually take it with you, you can put the Steam Deck in a case. The power pack. You can sort of like there's a band at the back that you can sort of tuck and wedge it in, but it doesn't actually go in the case, which is slightly irritating. But I had it in the bottom of my suitcase for my latest work trip when I was away for a few days. It stayed there because I was too busy. But when I've a couple of times, so I started out on Brutal Legend playing that on the Steam Deck on the sofa, and it was perfectly fine. I thought there was maybe a problem with the brightness levels, but it turned out, nope, that's just the game. Can't see anything unless you turn the brightness way up. But no, it's been good. I've not used it as a sort of handheld as much as I as I thought I might. It's mostly been when my wife is playing The Sims on our computer. I can play Steam games up in the living room, and yeah, it's got that compatibility means I've just got like a wireless Xbox controller that just you switch it in. The docking station is still arse. It is still absolutely the worst piece of kit that I've possibly ever owned.
I was going to say, I think, didn't you say you'd kind of come around it because you'd found sort of quite a lot of good stuff online because it was Linux, you could kind of
you can hack it and make it work. The docking station itself, the hardware is dreadful, and it's because like literally there is a ritual you have to go through to make it appear on my telly, which is switch the Steam Deck on, unplug the top bit, switch the Steam Deck off, unplug the main bit of the Steam Deck, plug them both back in and switch it back on, and then it will go on the telly.
2024 people.
This is what I mean. That's the kind of thing I would have liked to have been patched out. But the Steam Deck itself is great. That piece of hardware isn't worth it. And I'm sure there are third-party ones out there that you can get.
Yeah, I ended up getting a third-party one for basically exactly that reason.
Yeah.
But for my part, that speaks to the versatility of stuff you can plug in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Valve, they are sort of a hardware company with all the kind of that stuff, but it is mostly a vehicle to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could play all these Steam games that you're purchasing and that we're getting a percentage of on the go. And I agree, Steam, shut up and take my money. And it's been really good. I've not found any games that it just can't play.
Yeah.
There's some where it's not compatible, and there's some where it says Steam Deck compatible, and it is Steam Deck compatible if you play it on the deck, but it doesn't work if you play it just on a on the telly through the docking station, because the Steam Deck has got more buttons and it's got those kind of really nice tactile pads that like really feel like you're it gives you really good haptic feedback on the sort of mouse pad type things. So it's good for that. The battery life is fine. I don't know what you guys get out of your...
Yeah, for what it's doing, it's okay. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not exactly using it on long trips or anything like that. In fact, I'm barely even using it outside the house. I'm on the sofa when Fiona's got the telly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
But for that reason, it's a really it's a much cheaper way of getting a second computer than buying a second desktop and trying to find somewhere to put it.
It feels like a new phenomenon that we have a handheld for our house now. That is almost as consumers. It just feels like... to have that ability to play high quality gaming on the go, is in
docking station mentality.
It's definitely something that I think that in the last few years people are starting to value more and more. And in terms of sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say because you touched on a point that I completely neglected as well about the fact that you do need to tinker to just get stuff running sometimes. Like there'll be plenty of games that it says are unsupported that can run. You just need to coax it into life. And like the one, in fact, it was at the weekend. I was mucking about getting Battlefield 3 running on it, which you need the EA app and it opens in a browser, but you need to make your browser think that it's on Windows 10 rather than on Linux.
Yeah.
And so you end up having to add your browser to Steam, open that, get onto the site that you would need to launch Battlefield 3 from, open Battlefield 3 to the point that it opens up its browser, switch back to the original browser, go through that, then switch back to the game to get on it, and it will run. And the vast majority of human beings on Earth don't have time for that shit.
No.
Me, I fucking loved getting that running. That was so satisfying.
I mean,
being able to follow those instructions and go like, yes, you fucking bastard, I got you.
That feeling you get.
Part of it was just saying it
Just
up.
winning, Fazz.
Did
Just
you play on the
winning.
game? Didn't even play on it. Didn't even have to.
Oh
I
no! I played. I had my arse handed to me, and it was great.
I played my game already.
The feeling that you get out of that is like the feeling I get when I manage to go, no, I won't accept recommended cookies. I will manage my preferences.
I'm in charge,
American
damn
website
it.
that has never heard of GDPR.
Yeah.
It's so funny because we're all just so different. I'm just like, hand the cookies to me. Like, is it, like, just say, yeah.
Cookie Monster.
Give me all the flavours, yeah. Cool. Okay. So would you say that, obviously, from a point of view, it sounds like you're not using it that much at home, but it's worth having around, value for money to have around? You know, I mean, you're saying yes, you're using it a lot for your fighting games, or so we're talking. I mean, what, they're about £400 now. You can probably get them for, maybe, and you can get like,
There's a few different options.
Rogue Alley or whatever they are now that are a little bit more and stuff. But I think the cheapest Steam Deck. I mean, not that anyone has ever fallen to my basket on Amazon or anything. It's probably about £400, I think, when I last looked and took it back out.
I think for my part, yes, it's good value for money. There's a couple of asterisks with that, though. So first of all is that I had the Steam stuff anyway, and I had a library of games I could draw on. That said, as soon as I got it, I've been spending like nobody's business on Steam and Humble Bundle and all that, because I'm like, I can run that now. Great. Which, by extension, if I can run it, means I can also play multiplayer on stuff, because I don't have like the subscription services to a lot of the other things. So like I can actually go and play something like Battlefield Online now, which I've not been able to do for years. So, you know, there's definitely a place in that. I like having the flexibility that it gives me. I don't really have space for another like desktop computer easily. That said, like I think it was convenient timing for me, because the PS5 still isn't really ticking any of my boxes. I know my wife bought one and all that, but like I'm not seeing much of a reason to like commit to it. Ditto Xbox. Switch 2 could probably sway me depending on, you know, what it looks like, what it can do and all that kind of stuff. But as I sit here right now, I am infinitely more likely to go back into PC gaming nowadays rather than consoles.
Okay.
So to have the Steam Deck pop up was convenient timing, especially considering I had also like exchanged a lot of games to make it happen. So it wasn't like I was really having that pain of the outlay like in one go. This was a load of stuff that I built up over time that I effectively cashed in. And that made a lot of difference. That made it a much easier sale to convince myself to go for.
It's felt like much better value since the PS5 came out at that price point.
I think
so.
Yeah.
Because it did feel, when I got it, it felt like an investment of capital up front for a reduction in OpEx. Because like I already had the big Steam, like you, I had a library, and mine was pretty extensive already. And it was that thing of like, well, yeah, sure, I could get a PS4 for like 300 quid, 350 quid, whatever. But then you're paying 50 quid for every game. Or even the kind of the older ones, they don't really go below £30 very often now. Whereas, you can pick up things for like great games that have kept me entertained for £7. Like, and I got okay, it's a mid game, but got Brutal Legend, which was an entertaining weekend's entertainment as part of a bundle, I think. So it's all there's loads of good stuff out there, and there's so many indie games on it as well. I love that. Any game that's like below 1 gigabyte is just yes. I would love that horror one that you played last year that you hated.
Oh, Paratopic.
Paratopic, yeah. That was. I actually watched a video of it after you played it. I was that fascinated. The number of people on YouTube are going like, yeah, I don't get it.
It was so weird. I really want, and it was like trying to be weird, but it was just too weird for its own weirdness. Which Speaking of being too weird for his own weirdness, that's me. So I will get onto my free play then. And Jack, let's play a little game. Jack Black is a.
Well, it can't be actor because you said
no. But so therefore, if he's not an actor,
musician.
Yeah, but what kind of musician? Would
Rock
you say?
star.
Thank you very much. Right. Congratulations. Well done. That might help this next bit.
Okay, good.
And the hot rod handled like. Well, what type of vehicle is a hot rod? Kind of
a car.
Yeah, but you said it handled like a something.
Dodgem.
That's right. I played skate dodgems. No, at one point you said it was like a motorbike handling. So I have been playing a Rockstar game with some motorbike handling in it. So I have played Grand Theft Auto 4
Sorry, the whiplash of that segue is just really, really hurt.
I thought it was pretty good. Episodes from Liberty City. Thank you very much. I told you it weird. I'm hoping to rescue some of the review points out of the doldrums maybe, but we'll see. Because you might not feel that way. Let's see how much of a good job I do it then. 2009 on the Xbox from Rockstar North, from Leeds.
2009?
Yeah.
That was 2 years before Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah.
That's the same year as Brutal Legend.
Yeah. So Grand Theft Auto 4 is from 2008, and I remember sort of like skipping down. I must have been like second year of uni, like skipping down to Leeds High Street to go and buy from the shop the very first day of release.
Fazz, I've seen you. I don't believe you've ever skipped in your life.
Yeah.
Hey. And so I remember gallivanting down to the shops to get that, and I never got round to playing these at the time. And I don't really know why, to be honest, because I really, 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 really loved GTA 4. And I was like, well, what, it's about time that I kind of got into sort of looking at the episodes because I've heard good things, but are they as good as the main game? So to think about the cost at the time as well, I think it was £30 for both these together as a bundle, which if you think these are two, I'd say 10 to 12 hour games. That is, if you just play the main storyline really without doing even any of the side missions or going to full completion. For £30, it is, at the time even, is really great value for money. Something that, Rockstar quality. Have you guys played these before then, the episodes?
No, I've played Grand Theft Auto 4, I've played Grand Theft Auto 5. Yeah. I haven't played any of the episodes.
Right, okay, cool.
I have played 4 and the episodes, and also recently rebought them for my Steam Deck so I can play them handheld on my sofa. To the tune of about £11, I think it was for all three.
For all three as well. That's it's ridiculous. So I guess for everybody's sake, then, in terms of there being 2 episodes, there is the Lost and the Damned, which is the motorbike-esque club I was just speaking about before, and then there's the Ballad of Gay Tony as well. So I'll start off with the Lost and the Damned because that was the first one that came out, and then about 6 months later, Ballad of Gay Tony came out separately on the Xbox, and then they both got bundled together for Xbox and PS3 in 2010. So it's an overlapping concurrent story with characters from GTA 4, which it's really interesting that they kind of chose to do that because they could have very easily made it that they didn't have to tie it all in together, but they very clearly thought about it as a process to think, actually, we think that the characters are so strong from GTA 4, Unico's, to be able to tie those back into this story is great. And it's really funny, as I'll go into a little bit of detail, that the difference between The Lost and the Damned, I'd say The Lost and the Damned is a bit more like GTA 4 in theme and style, whereas The Ballad of Gay Tony is almost the flip opposite of what Grand Theft Auto can be, which it's great that they've done that straight after GTA 4 to kind of show what it can, the flexibility of what Grand Theft Auto can be before Grand Theft Auto 5 came along. So Johnny Klebitz is your main character. He is the vice president. I don't know what the voting process is of vice president of a biking club, biking gang.
Do they have hustings?
Yeah.
21 gun election, I think.
Of the club they're called the Lost, basically. So it's mostly focusing on his efforts to keep the chapter under control. He's dealing with a lot of internal conflicts, gang warfare, drug running, and a lot of enemies. That the
GTA game.
Yeah,
but startling number of early deaths.
Yeah, there's just a lot in this one. Like, as in immediately, the game gets going very, very quickly. Like, you feel under pressure as a vice president of a bike gang immediately. There's some real... I didn't obviously realise this until I went back to play this. And I've admitted on the podcast before that I've started Red Dead Redemption 2, so I've got about 25% in and kind of stopped. That will happen at some point, I'm sure. But there's real Red Dead Redemption 2 vibes where you've kind of got the vice president, Johnny, battling with the leader who's come back. He's a bit of an agent of chaos, a massive prick. And Johnny's kind of meant to be this, I guess, obviously you're the main character and therefore you're meant to feel sympathy for him. I feel like Johnny's a bit of a weak sort of character and a bit too likeable almost in a way. I was reading online and I guess this is going to be a spoiler for you, Haikers, not playing the game, but it's not like a massive one. Most people that I guess would have played GTA 5 would know this. Like, Johnny gets murdered by Trevor in GTA 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
And at that point, he's become a meth addict and a bit of a weak, even weaker character. And a lot of people sort of saying on like online forums and things when I was researching the game, they're like, "Oh, what have they done to Johnny? They've made him from this really strong character." I always thought he wasn't necessarily that strong in the first place. Certainly from a point of view that I didn't really warm to him that much, and I felt like he was just trying to be almost. I can see why that happened to him. When you kind of get those moments in Breaking Bad, like where sort of, you look at it from a point of view like you're in too deep and you don't know what you're in for, and you think you know everything but you don't. Kind of Walt sort of era. Then this is the same sort of thing I feel for Johnny as well. It's almost like he's trying to smooth over the cracks and stuff, and actually he's just in a real shit position, and I don't think he's kind of got the stones for it, and that kind of comes to pay off in GTA 5. And I was more on the side of, I can actually see that being his end, almost in a way. It's sad. You don't want that to happen to somebody, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it actually was realistic for me. So, yeah, it is, I would say, the story seems to be, from what I would understand of seeing little things on television or movies and stuff, quite faithful to the idea of a bike gang in terms of the structure of it and almost that brother family feel. And I think they do a really good job of getting that across. So, for Grand Theft Auto...
Sorry, you say family feel. I just think of kids' TV or something like that.
Yeah, sorry. No.
I guess family-friendly biker gang.
So, Rockstar have obviously developed the Warriors, like prior to this on the PlayStation 2. And I think they kind of had a bit of a leftovers of that trying to get into this. There's a point in the game where, during all the games, where you go on missions and as part of your bike gang, you've got to stick together in a formation. And if you do that, then you earn sort of effectively more story conversation with the gang around you. So you learn more about them. There is meant to be an idea that you can use your gang members in missions as well to help you out, which there's prompts where you have to do that, where it's like, you need to tell these two guys to come and help you be your heavies and also come and provide, ammo and guns and things. And you're meant to be able to do that like consistently throughout the missions, but I found that actually you didn't really need to. And I thought it was a bit of a waste opportunity, if I'm going to be honest. I thought they could have done a better job. I think they wanted to do what the Warriors did, where you kind of had the rotation of characters and people that were there to help you out with an actual squad and a family and a unit. Whereas this felt like I said, they were trying to do that, but didn't do a really good job of it.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess, really the ending, like I say, of this game, before you find out he's heavily murdered by Trevor in GTA 5.
Not just murdered.
The emphasis, he is kicked to death. And it's just like,
Is that when you first...
It's the very first time you meet Trevor.
I didn't know it was him. Yeah.
But the ending's really kind of in keeping with Grand Theft Auto 4, that it shows that crime doesn't always pay. Like I remember there's some real hard decisions for Nico at the end of GTA 4, and also in this as well, you find that Johnny doesn't end up on top. You know, he does all these missions and tries to keep his gang together, and actually ends up in a sort of slum with his girlfriend who's taking meth, and it's almost like it does feel like a very strange sort of solemn ending. But it's good to be, this is the realistic part of actual crime and Grand Theft Auto. So I thought it was cool that they did that. From a graphical point of view, and this stands, so I'm going to cross over both games here. It's not the best, but I also think that Grand Theft Auto has never been necessarily a graphical powerhouse. Like, it does a good enough job of that sort of early PS3 era. You do kind of, it looks good enough, but you kind of get like a weird orange haze over everything. Like, you know, everyone says, it's that brown era of gaming. Now, I don't want to sort of paint it with that brush necessarily, the brown brush, but it's almost like it feels like everything is covered in smog, and I feel like that's just graphical smog. Like I feel like it's trying, but it's just not quite there. I think there was probably better looking games at the time, but it wasn't horrendous. One thing I do want to give it credit for is certainly that, and this is Rockstar games in general, what I tend to note is that a lot of their FMV sequences aren't, they're not FMV, they're not full motion capture. It's in-game engine every single time, so it's so immersive. It never takes you out of that. And actually, whilst it doesn't look amazing, you're always with that character, and everything around you looks like it's living and breathing. That is which is one of the benefits, which I'll come to towards the end of the game, that sort of review, where it's like, that's one of the things that Grand Theft Auto does really, really well, is that living and breathing area. Controls in this game, as I sort of said before about the motorbikes and things, it's been heavily criticised, I guess, Grand Theft Auto 4. Some people really love its heavy handling of cars and bikes. Some people hate it. The one thing I noted going back to this was that it was really annoying that the main setup of driving a vehicle in this is that you're meant to use the triggers for that. But on a PlayStation 3 controller, the triggers are the slippy, slidey, sort of downwards facing ones. They're so hard to actually physically use to drive a vehicle. And then you can't use, there are two orientations of controls you could use. You could use the front facing sort of X, triangle, etc., to be able to, direct your vehicle and accelerate and things. But because of the camera angle that you are sat at when you're driving in the car, you almost have to hold onto the right analog stick to be able to put the camera angle at the right angle to be able to see. And it doesn't give you that angle to hold over at all times. So you can't use the face buttons to be able to do the camera angle whilst you're driving. It's physically impossible. So you have to use control and the triggers. And I remember saying on the podcast, I think it was last week or the week before, remind me to tell you of the £2 purchase that I made of something I had to buy, sort of the trigger, the little things that hook the triggers upwards to be able to make it so that I could actually physically play this game, which is really annoying. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to sort of say it's the game's fault per se, more that it's the DualShock 3's controller's design. I never noticed before until I played this. Going back to play this, I was like, "Fuck, this is shit."
I played it on the Xbox 360 back in the day, and the triggers were more like trigger shaped. Didn't realise it would make that much of a difference.
I guess going back to the combat thing, we talk about Duke Nukem and things. The combat in Grand Theft Auto, weirdly, isn't necessarily its strong point. It never has been, but it does a good enough job in this game and across Grand Theft Auto 4 and Ballad of Gay Tony. That is you feel like it does a good enough job of combat control, and I never really sort of saw it for anything worse than what I've always seen Grand Theft Auto games for. It's almost like that's part of the story, and you do a lot of combat and a lot of driving, obviously, but those two things in terms of them being annoying never stopped me from enjoying myself. In terms of the gameplay and stuff like that, from both of these games, they set up so quickly. And that's what I loved about this. I guess compared to Grand Theft Auto 4 or mainline Grand Theft Autos, you're just into the story. You get given your safe house. You get given everything you need to get going within the first sort of 15 minutes. It's like, right, okay, this is how you get going in the game. And here's a brief story and background of what's going on. And you're like, oh shit, this is brilliant because I'm not getting all the bloat that you get. Say with Grand Theft Auto 4, where it's like, hey cousin, let's go bowling, like everyone always says all the fucking time. And I did too. It's almost like you kind of get a lot of bloat in a main Grand Theft Auto game, or it feels that way, and I imagine Grand Theft Auto 6 will be the exact same. But I'm not a massive fan of that. I like it to be a lean, mean machine, and these games do that so well. I was super excited to see that. Actually, I was like, right, after 15% of the Lost and the Damned, I had full frontal male nudity from one of the characters who was the bad guy who was giving the mission, and in that mission I was blowing up airplanes. Do you know what I mean? 15% into the game, I'm blowing up an airplane. It's just exactly, it's just like Grand Theft Auto just sort of like distilled very quickly into an experience. I couldn't believe it, because that would be the kind of mission where, like, say, going back to Grand Theft Auto 3, for example, one of the first sort of iterations, that would be like 75% into the game. So these do a really good job of just getting you in quick and saying, right, okay, just have a bombastic time immediately. I would say that if I'm going to flick to the Ballad of Gay Tony, that does an even better job of that. I think that Ballad of Gay Tony is the Vice City of all these games.
Yeah.
It's just got the sparkle, the pizzazz almost, that is in the thrill. The very first mission on that game, you get taken to a golf course where you're hitting golf balls at a bent politician, I think it is. That isn't, so you do like a mini game playing golf. You hit them with the golf balls, and all of a sudden, like, guys just turn up with massive machine guns, and then you've got to fight them off, and you kill them with a rocket launcher, effectively. And then after that, then you're in a chase in golf carts. It's just like in the very first mission, it's like, go on, have fun, just have a good fucking time. Like, it's in, it just doesn't hold back. And it really was that juxtaposition with The Lost and the Damned and Grand Theft Auto 4, where it was like, we are in this world, we're still in Liberty City, we're still using the same engine, but we're having a great time doing it. So, I don't know if you thought the same, Rich, in terms of, how you felt about those two games and how you see them from what you remember.
Yeah, I remember the I'm glad you said about the end of Johnny, because I thought the same as you, because from what I could remember of the Lost and the Damned, like I mean, I'd hesitate to say that it just felt like a death march, but it feels like there's an inevitability about the plot, which makes it feel grounded, but at the same time really fucking depressing. Ballad of Gay Tony definitely, feels like someone went, okay, you've put up with the depressing stuff. Let's go have fun now. And just as an aside, like, I'm one of those people who absolutely adores the handling in Grand Theft Auto 4. I love the weight of the cars. I love the weight of the combat as well. Like, and it's easily my Grand Theft Auto of choice. Full disclosure.
So the physics go so fucking hard. Like, explosions are insane in this game. I remember, like, being actually shocked when I got back into it, and an explosion went off beside me, and I was like, "What?" It's just like, it's insane. They just really took everything to the nth degree across Grand Theft Auto in these episodes. So it's funny that you should say about Ballad of Gay Tony as well, because it being a bit lighter and things. Like, Louis, who is the main character in that, he's a bodyguard who, used to be a drug dealer, and he's turned sort of bodyguard. He's best friend of Gay Tony in the title character, and who is a bit of like sort of a crime playboy magnate sort of thing that just is always fucking up and doing drugs and stuff. But it's like high-end crime. Like, and I always think Grand Theft Auto is always the best when you kind of get that, when you're out of
the white-collar crime
type
do you know what I mean?
territory. When you're out of the dirt and you're in more of the dealing with
the
that.
razzmatazz.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, and that's, I guess, speaking maybe to the Vice City, and like, I'm thinking back to like Donald Love, even when like the third Grand Theft Auto, when you get into those sort of the really bent rich people, like, as in when it kind of gets into that kind of stuff, you're like, yeah, this is actually really exciting, and it does a really good job of that. And again, silly little things like that I'm not there for necessarily, but it was like you could just tell that this was just it was just high on its own supply. Ballad of Gay Tony, like you there's a mini game where you have dancing in a nightclub, and if you perform it, and it's just a rhythm game, and it doesn't tell you what's going to happen. You perform it really well, and I mean, it's a bit stupid for not really knowing, but then, like, literally within seconds, you're having like sexual intercourse with someone in a toilet. Like, but the thing is, though, like, with being like, so you're in Liberty City, you're in America, like the female of the piece is a broad Cockney going, "You sexy motherfucker!" Like while you're having sex, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is like ridiculous." I don't understand. Like they just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And for a lot of the time, a lot of it does. Like that didn't. I was like, "What is going on?" But, like,
that's the Rockstar North influence.
Yeah.
There's a weird number of Cockneys and Geordies in LA.
And I couldn't quite work out if it was almost a bit like a gay pride supporter, or if it was actually doing a disservice to the community almost in a way, because to have that relationship of seeing Tony as, you know, this rich, successful gay person, like as in, you know, and almost like everybody being accepting of that was actually quite sort of good to see, I guess, even from a game from 2009. But then on the flip side of it, it's kind of like in Grand Theft Auto's world that has that sort of, is it Tarantino thoughtful question mark Tarantino, or is it Tarantino 3 exclamation marks, all of the sort of, you know, the Hispanic sort of racist remarks and things are in there and stuff, and it's like, you know, like, and you're kind of thinking, what line are you walking here? I felt like they were on the right side of the tightrope, but it's very easy to sort of see it speaking to two different types of people. I think because I'm the optimistic person that wants that to be true, but then I could see it being somebody could play that game who might have those beliefs, that, you know, and I would say wrongly might have those beliefs and think that it's okay to do that in terms of call people, you know, like have racist remarks and stuff, and think of it as a supportive mechanism for them as well. It was a really hard thing for me. I had weird feelings about it.
Was for that kind of stuff, it's always really difficult, and it's like, is gay Tony's homosexuality played for laughs?
I don't think it was. I think that
that's the usual benchmark.
That's what I think it kind of was almost that it was just like that was an accepted okay thing that was kind of happening in terms of compared to, but as a character, he was a bit of a fuck up as well. Like, as in, so that is in. But
it's
that was
one of
almost
a few
like,
things that define him, rather than the
exactly.
only thing.
Yeah. So I just thought it was an interesting sort of thing,
and we as 3 straight white men can make that determination.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, not a problem. So, you know, things that were a little bit different from this game, certainly from The Lost and the Damned, was that in The Lost and the Damned, you had side missions, but you didn't have to do them. They just didn't exist as part of the game, really. That isn't. They were just your basic sort of gang war sort of things that you would have experienced in San Andreas and in Grand Theft Auto previous to that. Whereas in this, the side missions felt like they were more integral to the game and because I think they just thought of more fun ways of being able to include them, like say with the golf carting and playing golf. And there's like sort of street races where you will, I can't remember the exact order, but I think it's like you skydive and then you race a boat, and then you race a car through the streets, and it's just like, you know, and that's just brilliant. It's
Rich
so ridiculous.
I was going to say, wow.
And it just, that's how, you know, that's how I kind of felt about it. I was a bit like, wow, this is just here to have fun. That is in, So I was a bit like thinking, right, what is it about Grand Theft Auto then that people actually really enjoy? Because are the violent sexual undertones and overtones, that is it, are they are they going to be acceptable in Grand Theft Auto 6? Are they going to be the things that people come for and expect out of it? Because from all I can hear on a lot of media, social media and things, is that every single person on the entire planet is going to buy Grand Theft Auto 6, and it doesn't matter how much it's going to be, and everyone's going to be on it and playing that game. What is it that makes people want to play Grand Theft Auto? And I was thinking about this because I was like, right, I think these are now probably, as you were saying about Grand Theft Auto 4 in the first place, I think these iterations of Grand Theft Auto 4's world are my quintessential Grand Theft Auto games. I think these 2 10-hour stories do such a good job of using the engine from Grand Theft Auto 4. And actually, whilst I enjoy Luis as a protagonist and also his story more than I do Johnny's, they're still both very, very good. And they have all the right things going for them. You know, but I don't know if like I'm there for all of the bullshit basically the Grand Theft Auto comes with that, and there's the silliness. It's more the immersion and the detail. Like, you feel like you're in a living, breathing world when you're in Liberty City. This the sounds, the radio, like the things that people shout at you, like, you know, every single sign has a meaning to it. You know, like, as in pizza banners in the Italian part of town get stuffed. and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like every single taxi driver has something to say. It just has an amazing quality about it, whereas you might not get the best graphics, you might not get the best gunplay, driving, whatever you want to pick it, whether you like it or don't. But you cannot argue with the amount of immersion that comes with a Grand Theft Auto game of this caliber. And I can see why people go, I am fully invested in this world. I genuinely felt that during this sort of 20 hours of playing these games through. I was like, I totally get it. It's like an addictive drug playing a Grand Theft Auto game where it just draws you into this world and you just inhibit the characters there. That was my my selling point.
That was your pitch.
Yeah, to see if we can get any higher than a 3 or a 5 that we've had before, but we don't have to.
See what we can do. What do you reckon?
I mean, you're speaking very fondly of it. You've not really said anything negative about it. You haven't said anything negative. You've not been completely gushing and blowing. But that sounded like an 8 to me. That's where my head was at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think, Rich.
Funnily enough, I was thinking exactly the same thing. And the reason I asked you first was that I was thinking 8, and then I was thinking, but am I scoring the 8, or am I going off of Fazz's thing? Because I think it would, were I to review it, I think I would probably come out in broadly the same place. But then I love vanilla GTA 4 that little bit more, because Nico is a favourite character of mine, or one of. I just think he's quite nuanced, which for a Rockstar protagonist is
it was their
kind of unusual.
Wasn't it? The 4 versus the, I don't even know what you would class 5 as, but
Tarantino, I guess.
Probably.
That kind of ensemble thing going on. But and I think you're right. It will be interesting to see how they play it with 6, because I think with some of the humour and the goofiness that the earlier games had, it feels like nowadays everyone's moved on a little bit from that, and a lot of the humour's kind of been siphoned off into things like Saints Row, and I would argue that some of the Saints Row games did it better in the end by committing to it. Whereas, I think you're onto something with Rockstar being able to build a world that you could live in. It'll be interesting to see how.
I think GTA 6 will look very similar to GTA 5 in terms of the tone and the overall. The GTA 5, especially with the online stuff, has done quite well at adapting in a way that doesn't adapting so that it's always punched up rather than punched down. Actually, no, that's a lie, because often you're stomping on the face of
Johnny.
Literally Johnny. But even that is sort of. That's more to make a point about Trevor than it is about anything else. But it's always had that ability. It's an open world. People are going to be arseholes. People are going to be on prostitutes and take their money back. And that is the...
I guess there's a reality to it, isn't there?
And there's so much that you can do in an open world framework. And it's the freedom and it's the anarchy of it, which I think is the appeal. I never used to like the online version of GTA 5 because it's full of people who cheat and hack and all that kind of stuff. But that's sort of, that's the playground that they created, and the world is just exactly to your point, Fazz. It feels full, and that's the big problem I've had with open world sims. And we talked about you don't want something that's so big. My main problem is an open world that feels empty, because it is just a lonely place to be. I still remember, this is stupid and completely off topic, but Tony Hawk 4, I still remember when I would complete a mission on Tony Hawk 4 on the PlayStation 2, I used to have to switch the quests back on because the levels felt so empty, because quest givers disappeared when you'd done it, and when you'd finished all the quests, it was just skating around in this empty city. This is really rubbish. Let's put all the people back on.
There is something about that. I remember the Canada level from Tony Hawk's 3, and you kind of have people kind of kicking around on the edge of sort of skate park and stuff, and it does give it a certain feel different from the first game. So the more lived in a world is, I think it definitely increases enjoyment anyway. So.
And I think this is why I've been a sucker for 4 as well, because for me, that was Rockstar doing a world that was deep rather than broad. It wasn't too spread out. If they'd made the map that much bigger and say gave you half of New Jersey or whatever as well, I think it would have been to the detriment of the game. Whereas 4 feels like the sweet spot for me, where you've got that depth to the world. So yeah.
I appreciate their commitment in the online game to consistently adding new stuff as well. There's always new stuff, new dialogue, new people popping up to actually keep it a little bit fresh as well. I'm one of those players that I bought the single player game and I play online and purely like on my own. No strangers. I'm gonna just like sit and do my motorcycle club delivering counterfeit documents from one place to another to get like £4,000 or something. Like
it was so odd because in GTA 4 you used to be able to get online using your mobile phone or whatever it was and stuff. I tried to get on, there was nobody on there, as there wasn't on Duke Nukem. But you know, I was secretly thinking, I wonder if there would be some people that isn't, because actually when I read up about it, they're like, the service is still live for PlayStation 3, and I was like, I wonder if we could get somebody from like a subreddit to come and like join me, maybe. Like Grand Theft Auto 4.
I tell you what, like I used to spend hours on it, like on back in the day, and I had a friend who had recently moved to Australia, and it was one of the ways we'd keep in touch was we'd hop on GTA 4, and then fast forward to GTA 5, and my now wife, then girlfriend, we would play that. And I still have very, very fond memories of this time we were going onto a heist and she had to go off to get a plane, and I could hear this like weird noise over the headset. I was like, are you watching a tutorial for how to fly a plane on your way to the airport? I just hear this like sheepish, no. Oh God, we are going to die. And just those little moments where, you know, someone has managed to create this playground and this framework for those kinds of moments and interactions to happen in. And that is pretty special. Like I might loathe online GTA nowadays for exactly the reasons that you said, Haikers. But you, like you say, you've got to applaud them for being able to put it together.
Yeah. No, cool. Okay. Right. Well, that was awesome. I think that we probably came out looking pretty good on those 3 games there. I think that they probably feel like good reviews. They came up with good scores, broadly in line with what every single other person thinks about those games. So, yeah.
I've rated mine a lot lower than the general consensus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
right, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Cool. It was an 8 out of 10 when it came out.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. I'll lie.
So not to undercut the nice message of like an hour and a half in, but
here we are.
Here we are,
and it's
indeed.
a lie.
That's fine. Right. Thanks very much for listening, guys.
Cheers.
See you later. Bye.